Did you know there is a word that is the counter opposite of sparkle?
I have a feeling you're going to tell us about it.
This word is darkle. Now ignore how stupid it sounds and just think for a moment about the potential applications of darkle.
The cosplaying ideas alone, I think, can make this amazing.
I mean, one, you could be that guy from The Watchmen, Rorschach.
The blue guy?
No, the guy that his face always changes.
Yeah.
And it darkles.
Darkles.
But I also think it should be used in the sense that there's something inside of us, that little pang that says, hey, let's do something a little bit socially undesirable, something that's just a little bit unacceptable.
Like run the car off the road type stuff, or we did a little...
No, something worse, something like starting a sentence and then not... You are listening to The Soapbox. I'm Paul.
And I'm Eric.
This all started out with a list. What's that all about?
So I've compiled a list over the years of things that just bother me, things that grind my gears. And I shared that list with you.
And I thought, you know what? That would make interesting conversation. Sometimes I'm going to want to agree with you, and it's just going to be something we talk about. Other times, though, I'm going to want to steel man the opposite position because I think that's just interesting conversation.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I'm always right, but Paul's just a really good debater.
Hey.
Paul, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. And we've got a very special guest in the studio. I'm going to make up a bio for you right now.
Let's do it.
So he is 30 years old, but he's been doing transportation engineering for at least 35 years. He's got 6 or 7 PhDs, most of them in things I can't pronounce. And his hobbies include doing his own stunts, just like Tom Cruise, as well as putt-putt golf. So welcome, Dr. Reg Souleyrette. Was any of that anywhere close?
Yeah, that was great, Paul. Appreciate it.
And our first guest, right?
This is our first guest, yeah. So we decided to play it safe and pick somebody that we really like.
Thanks.
So future guests, we don't like you as much as we like Reg.
That's right. Set the bar now.
Right back at you guys.
So do you want to just give just a brief CV of who you actually are?
Sure. As Paul said, I'm Reg Souleyrette. I'm a professor at the University of Kentucky. I teach in transportation engineering, which is part of civil engineering. I have only one small PhD.
And you can
bigger than
it.
mine, which is non-existent.
I don't mind putt-putt golf. I like to camp and get out and into the nature when I can and build and fix things. I don't throw anything away.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, guess that's the engineer in me, just kind of wanting to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have a deep appreciation for tinkering. You'll see on the back of my laptop, I've covered up that ugly Dell logo with an iFixit sticker that says "Fix the World." So I'm a fellow tinkerer.
Yeah, I walked into Home Depot the other day with hardware stores on my therapy T-shirt on, and I had forgotten I even had it on, and people were asking about my shirt. I'm like, why are you? Oh, yeah.
If they were in Home Depot, they might have been asking you for help because the people in the orange aprons don't know hardly anything.
This is true.
So
I did want to say that I've been in Lexington for about 13 years now as an adult. I was born here, and at age 5 moved away and made a big tour around the southwest U.S. and came back. Folks retired here, and I just always wanted to work at UK, and so when the opportunity came up, applied for a position, and here I am.
Here you are. Awesome. We're going to bring up some things that may be a little bit controversial. Not necessarily controversial, but at least there's a schism in public opinion.
Sure.
And I am going to try my best to counterpoint that and steel man the opposite position, even if I don't agree.
Okay.
And Eric had brought a couple of ideas to the table. One of those, and I think this is something that a lot of communities are starting to adopt, and public opinion generally starts out pretty low on, is the idea of a roundabout. Mm-hmm. So is this something that you know something about?
A little bit. I've done some work on roundabout capacity analysis, roundabout perception, visibility of roundabouts. worked with a colleague in Pisa, Italy, and they do a lot of roundabouts in Italy, like France and other European countries have a lot of roundabouts. And one of the things you want to provide in a roundabout is something unique, so that when somebody looks up ahead and they see this, that they recognize that hey, something's different. It's not going to just be a regular intersection, and you want them to be aware of that as soon in advance as possible.
So when I first encountered a roundabout in Kentucky, Lexington put one in when I was a younger driver, and I remember one of the very first things that I knew about the roundabout, even before I had driven it myself, was a girl that I worked with did not navigate the turn in the roundabout and broke the axle on her car. And
that's interesting. I've never heard of that happening. I didn't even know you could do something with your car to break the axle unless the axle was going to break anyway.
well, she was also a young driver, so she may have had
She go up on the curb or something, and
she did, and I think she might have done it with some gusto.
yeah.
But to those folks that would say roundabouts are going to cause more fender bender types of accidents, they're hard to navigate. They're problematic. Why are you breaking our cars? Why are you advocating for design systems that break our cars? How dare you?
Right. Well, I'll say something that I'll probably want to take back, but I think a lot of times people are more concerned about their own car getting dented and having to go through insurance and a possible increase in insurance, dealing with the body shop and being out of a car for a while. That really irritates people, rightly so. But the whole purpose of a roundabout is not to avoid fender benders. It's to reduce fatalities and serious injury crashes. And it does a fantastic job of that. And unfortunately, our society is sort of willing to accept, say, 40,000 fatalities per year and hundreds of thousands of serious injuries per year, as long as it's not them or their family. When I teach a class, I'll ask the students to raise their hand if they or someone they know have been in a crash that had serious consequences. And almost everybody raises their hand. And I quit doing that a few years ago when a young lady raised her hand, and I asked a question about what the experience was. And her father had just died in a car crash. And so I don't do that anymore. But I am pretty passionate about saving lives and reducing serious injuries. Sometimes when we put something new out there, well, all the time when we put something new out there, there's going to be a large number of people that, why are you doing this? This is weird. This is strange. Wasn't everything working fine before? Well, the question is, wasn't everything working fine before? Is no, it wasn't. We generally don't do these things, willy-nilly just because we can do them. I think the other types of intersections, like the Double Diamond at Harrodsburg Road in New Circle, is an example of that, where people driving through there, you have to switch over and drive with in the opposite direction as you would normally think, going under the bridge.
So let's maybe unpack that for just a second, because
Sure.
we can't assume everybody listening is familiar with local geography.
Right.
I hope we're going to get some listeners from out of town. What is a double diamond? What does that look like?
Sure. Well, this is an intersection that's deployed when you have a freeway or access-controlled facility that intersects a major arterial or surface street.
Those are some fancy words. What's that mean?
Like an interstate.
Okay.
Meeting a big road that cuts across the interstate, sort of in a major urban area.
Okay.
That has traffic signals. Okay, so we have this situation where you have to control the movement of the vehicles through that intersection. This is typically, in America, it's typically done with a traffic signal and a conventional sort of straight through approach, where the major arterial road just goes straight through. Oftentimes these roads are also high-speed roads, not as high-speed as maybe the interstate is, but in Lexington, this road that I was referring to has a speed limit of 55 miles per hour on one side of the intersection, and it goes down on the other. But a lot of times people would be approaching that, as you can imagine, faster than the speed limit, especially when they think the light's turning red, or maybe the light's already turned yellow and they try to beat the signal, or
They try to go through when it's orange.
yeah, they try to go through when it's orange and going maybe as much as 70 miles an hour, and then somebody from the other direction controlled by a light there. Maybe they're on their phone. Maybe they're just thinking about what they need to do for the rest of the day, and they see it turn green and they press the gas, right? Because it's green and it shouldn't be anybody coming from the other direction. Well, many people were seriously injured and killed at that intersection, and since we've put in this innovative so-called double diamond intersection, we haven't had any serious injuries and fatalities.
How long has that been?
Ticked a lot of people off because it's weird, but
it is weird.
Oh yes,
for sure.
This has been almost 10 years now that the intersection has been in place.
Now, off the top of your head, do you remember? Was there an annual fatality rate, or was it just one every few years?
Oh, it was only just one. Of course, only just one. No,
Just takes one.
it
just takes one.
No, it was several over several years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if your measurement then is not total crashes but severity, and I'm playing dumb here a little bit, but for the sake of our listeners, how do we measure that?
So we measure two different ways. We count the number of injuries, so fatal injuries, serious injuries, minor injuries, and then property damage only crashes. So we have counts of all of those things.
So
and
what
then,
you're telling me is back to our traffic circle, then if you can increase the number of property damage, but you can reduce the number of killed, that's the win?
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to go to, the second way that we measure. And the second way we measure is we come up with an economic loss, where we take a value of each of these different types of crashes. And, placing a value on human life is not an easy thing, and some people think you shouldn't even do that, but how do you make an investment decision without knowing what the numbers are? So the U.S. Department of Transportation says that we should use a value of about $9 million per fatality.
So I'm worth $9 million?
How life insurance do you carry, Paul? Don't you carry $9 million?
I think I need to talk to my guy and get it bumped up.
You might want to. So these are so-called policy numbers. They are numbers that are put in place. They are loosely based upon loss of future earnings, pain and suffering, legal fees, medical fees, and all those
there it
types of
is.
things.
So if I were to die, it's not so much
we don't really
my
care
material
about you.
wealth.
No.
It's just how much my wife will suffer.
Right. This
9 might be high for
fatality.
me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty self-aware.
And I think that one key thing we can point out with this diverging diamond intersection is that what we're really trying to do here, as you were saying, is eliminate that left turn conflict. You have somebody wanting to turn left.
So let's use plain language. What is a conflict?
So as Reg was saying, some people are coming in pretty fast, trying to beat the light, but then someone wants to get on the interstate, and the only way they can do that is by turning left, which comes in front of them, and then that's when you can get one of the most severe crashes.
So in industry, then conflict points are places where crashes can happen.
Yeah, there where two cars can intersect. Yeah.
Okay. So let me bring another gripe to the table, because I think maybe the fender bender thing is not the best. But how about how it messes up traffic? I mean, let's talk about how everybody's slowing down, and now it's creating problems.
So now we're speaking to the planner of
it's difficult to
side
navigate.
Yeah.
It's
So I think, Eric,
traffic.
I thought when you said that you were going to go with the traffic, because usually we have two concerns. We have safety, and then we have traffic, travel time, congestion, that type of thing. And so for another big advantage of the diverging diamond intersection is that there's a free left turn now. When you flip up people over to the other side, they don't have to wait for anybody. They're not going to conflict with anybody when they I want to go up onto the freeway. So traffic circle, I gotta pick a bone with you on that. I know we're talking to a general audience, but a roundabout is not a traffic circle. A traffic circle is a special kind of intersection. It's round, it's a circle, but it has either traffic signals going into it, or you have to yield to people that are coming into a traffic circle. And this is a bad design. It sort of comes from horse and buggy days almost. And they're being replaced by a so-called modern roundabout, where you need to yield to people that are already inside. But getting back to your traffic question is, what does this do to the traffic? Well, sometimes the roundabout really helps traffic. Sometimes it does not. It almost always helps safety, at least for serious crashes. But where you put them and the traffic flow coming in, the traffic flow patterns coming in makes a big difference in a roundabout. They don't work everywhere.
Now it's a circle, so does that make more conflict points?
No, it makes less conflict points because it's kind of hard to describe this without a diagram.
I'm sure Paul's going to put the diagram in here in the
I
YouTube
think
version of this.
That'll be great. I think there's like 32 conflict points at a regular intersection of somebody turning left and somebody going straight, and if you go all the way around the horn, it's quite a few conflicts. The traffic circle. You got me saying that. Sorry. No, that's right. You can leave that one in there.
Contagious.
The roundabout has very few conflict points, and those conflict points are less severe conflicts. So they're angle collisions, which are generally less severe than, say, rear ends and T-bone crashes, especially head-on crashes. You shouldn't have any of those with a modern roundabout, although don't ever say never, because people I've seen
they get creative with their destruction.
People go straight through a roundabout. I remember there's a roundabout in Iowa that they built with a depressed circle. Center island was depressed like 10, 12 feet, something like that. It was kind of an elevated.
Which makes a ramp, right?
A perfect ramp, and it wasn't open very long at all before we didn't have a car, angled down into the hole.
I just imagine like the car from the Dukes of Hazzard going slow motion.
Long about now, I bet that boy wishes he had a parachute.
So another couple interesting points I'd like to just inject in here that I think are interesting is where you said roundabouts aren't great for every application. One thing in particular they're not great about is around pedestrians, right? Because now it's continuous movement, right? So you're not stopping ever. So the pedestrian doesn't have a chance to cross.
Right.
And that makes it really tough on campuses, and we've got some on campus. And
even with a painted crosswalk,
Yeah.
Driver behavior is certainly not always the same in different states. It's different cultures. Like in California, I think you can kind of just almost look. When you're on the sidewalk, the drivers will a lot more times just stop and let you go across at a crosswalk. Whereas in Kentucky, it's not generally like that. You have to wait for a gap to get in the car. It would be safer to wait for a gap.
the Mr. Driver, Mr. Walker type of.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that's interesting in Lexington, particularly the one they put in here, they made it a 2-lane roundabout for the first roundabout, and
Yeah.
So we didn't get our training wheels.
we know.
Anytime you do something for the first time, you really need to get it right, because then a lot of people get their experience based upon that. They put in a double lane, and people didn't know how to drive. They didn't know what lane to be in.
I get nervous turning at a traditional intersection with another car also making a turn. I feel like a Blue Angels pilot.
Okay, man, let's turn and burn.
The other day, it was like 2 left turn lanes, a double left turn lane. They have triple left turn lanes in some places, actually, but I don't know if we have any here in Lexington.
Two at least.
But the left turns, when they have the opposing lefts going at the same time, you get really close to each other. And time you get out to the middle of a really big intersection, you could be up to some speed.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't have the lane painted, like where they'll have the line.
Yeah.
You can follow along the line at least, but yeah.
Well, it's hard to eat a hamburger, talk on your cell phone, and follow these lines, even if they are.
Right.
Right. And post a selfie to your Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And do your Wordle. I mean,
Beat the kid in the back seat. Yeah, all the things we did when we were driving.
I feel like there's a lot of very talented drivers out there who are fully capable of multitasking, right? Is that how the data shows?
Yeah, I think we ought to be glad it's not worse than it is, even though it's pretty bad. That a lot of times we sort of have an angel watching over us when we're on the road.
So is this a good time for just a PSA? Just hey everybody, make that pledge. Put your phone down. That email is not that important. Certainly after talking about the price we're putting on our heads. So
I read crash reports. I read the narratives of the crash reports. I see the tragedy, especially young drivers. A lot of them are just learning how to drive, and they're distracted by other teens in the car or what have you. But the phone is just, our phones can do everything now, right? They become part of us. And to say, put down your phone, which we should, is not so easy.
How am I supposed to microdose on dopamine if I don't have something constantly in my face?
Yeah, exactly.
And hats off to the folks, and I know some of them that, they'll take their phone, they'll put it in the trunk, or shut it down, or they have some service where if it detects you're moving at a certain speed, it'll go right to voicemail. And
So we're looking into the technologies to try to help. The phones themselves are great safety devices, and they're also great distractors. And so it seems like every time we take a step forward with technology, people compensate.
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
But people push the boundaries. They push the boundaries when their car can take a curve much faster than the posted, curve warning sign.
So do you think that there's a parallel there to some of these alternative safety designs that are coming out? So the roundabout, the double crossover diamond, is part of the benefit that people don't feel as safe approaching that unfamiliar intersection type, and so they do slow down? They do pay attention?
So there's another double-edged sword, right? So for some people, it's new, it's different, so they think more about it, and thinking more is generally good, right? Being present in the moment when you're driving all of the time. Have you ever driven someplace and you just can't remember the trip at all?
Dude, where's my car? Where's your car, dude?
Because you're just driving so automatic. It's almost like in your lower brain part,
Am I wrong in saying in Iowa and places like that where they have very, very straight roads, they put curves in intentionally just to kind of break it up, or did I?
No, I'll tell you where that probably came from.
Okay.
Iowa's a western state. It's west of the Mississippi. The land, when the land was first apportioned in the western states, it was on the public use land survey system. They were 1 square mile sections of land, and so when they surveyed everything out, the public right of way, originally given to the railroads and later for roads, would run along these lines. Well, the Earth is a sphere, and as you get further north, the lines of latitude get closer together. All right, you have to adjust for that, and if you have to adjust for that, you're driving out there, you just think the world is flat, but it's not flat, so they have to make an adjustment every once in a while. So you'll be going down the middle of a section line, all of a sudden, you got to take a curve to keep following the next section line.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have to do a quick hit here. I'm going to convince you in just a few sentences that the Earth is in fact flat.
What?
All right, so question 1 for you. What is the surface of the Earth primarily covered in?
Water.
Is that water carbonated?
No.
Therefore, the Earth is
Flat.
boom.
Wah.
Well, that's some low-hanging fruit for cutting out on the edit there, Paul.
All right, yeah, I'm not a flat earther.
So I have to ask. Many years ago, when automated vehicles was the hot. I mean, it is a hot topic. But when it was new, I was among the camp that was convinced. My kids weren't even going to have to learn to drive because they're going to be robot-driven cars. And this is probably 10 years ago, and now my daughter has her intermediate driver's license. But do you see that automated vehicle idea increasing in pace? Do you think it's on the horizon to where we may not be driving in X number of years? Where do you think we are there?
No, I don't. Well, we're not there. I don't know what part of the S curve we're on. You can throw up an S curve on the plot if you want to, but I think we're still down in the flat part before it starts going really fast. But what happens when you get to that middle point? Things do happen really fast. But we have so many different things to work out, and I think we have to kind of work them out by doing and seeing what happens and fixing it, which is kind of sad. Right? Because what does that mean? That means more people are going to keep dying because drivers are going to make bad decisions. Well, computers can mess up too, right? Maybe a human program it, maybe AI program it. I don't know. But there's still a possibility of failure in the system, but it should be much safer.
Agreed.
Now, my understanding is that human factors account for the overwhelming majority of crashes. It's not engineering factors. It's not vehicular factors. Those exist.
Yeah, 94% of crashes have a human element to them. I'm not saying the human was the only element in the crash.
So do you think the idea of zero crashes, zero fatalities is a reality given the 6% non-human factors?
No, but what do you? We don't just throw our hands up on the 94%, right? There are many different approaches to reducing the casualties in that 94%, and you can do that by engineering a better road or engineering a better car. You can do it by improving education. You can do it by improving law enforcement. We call those the 4 E's of highway safety. So even though a person makes a mistake, I kind of liken it to this. You shouldn't get the death penalty for making a mistake while you're driving. I mean, we don't give the death penalty to too many people in this whole country, no matter awful, awful things that people do. We still don't do that, right? But you've had one too many, and you get in the car, and you go down the road, and you kill somebody. We just got to get more awareness of these types of things. We're working on it, but you shouldn't get the death penalty. So what do we do? Let's say it was just a person that fell asleep and ran off the road. That's a mistake. You shouldn't be driving when you're tired. Probably happens to most people at some point in their life where they'll be either so tired that they are driving very dangerously, or something happens. So what kind of roadside do we provide in case that happens? It's expensive, but...
And what you're talking about for everybody that does transportation, they know that as the safe systems approach, right?
Right.
The idea that
all these things working together, even emergency response. I guess I didn't mention emergency response. Even getting the medical care quicker, especially in rural areas, is so important to reducing the lifelong effects of crashes.
Okay. Well, I think I'm done steel manning the opposite position because I agree with everything you're saying, and it's hard to be pro-death. Right. But let's just maybe put a nice shiny capstone on the top here, and if you had one thing that you would want to tell people who are listening, what should people be doing to make those roadways a little safer for themselves and everybody around them? Take
it easy, folks. I mean, I get angry pretty quick. I'm that kind of a person. But on the road, that kind of anger, somebody cut you off. There's a chance that they cut you off because they just made a stupid mistake, or they could just be a mean person and they cut you off. What did that really cost you? Mm-hmm. It really only cost you a few seconds and a little irritation. Don't retaliate. Leave a little extra room. Easy to say because people are having their lives, right, while they're driving, and some very serious issues out there. But if you can, just have a little grace for other folks and hope that they will give you some too.
Awesome. And I'll pivot to the other doctor in the room. You have any closing thoughts on the idea of what people can do?
I like the take it easy approach. And as I said, my daughter's driving now. One of the things I've told her, and my wife really likes it too, it's kind of a new way of thinking when you get behind the wheel. If you get behind the wheel and you're going to be late for whatever you're supposed to get to, you're already late. Just, you messed up. You didn't get to the car fast enough.
Right. Reckon with it on the front end.
Don't use the time in the car to make up that time because you screwed up. You got to own it. And you're not going to, first of all, you're rarely ever going to get there on time by racing, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to be late regardless. Why not get there safely, Yeah.
Well, and I guess the one problem I'm currently working on in a publication I'm putting together right now is DUI. So I'll throw the third wheel on the bus there. If you're drunk, just get an Uber.
Yeah.
Please
cheap.
Don't drive drunk or high on drugs. And what we're talking about is reckless driving, aggressive driving. What we're talking about is sober driving, and what we're talking about is speed, watching that speed. Yeah. And if people do that and buckle up, we're going to save a lot of lives.
Yeah. Just remember, you may not make the right decision after you've had a few or after you partake. So the best time to make that decision is kind of before you start. Just do a little bit of planning. You still have a great time. Oh. Just a little thinking.
Roll that outro.
Thanks, Reg, for joining.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Soapbox. Eric, how can people find us?
Well, conveniently, we put everything on our Linktree site. You can go to Linktree, search Soapbox Lex, and you'll find all of our socials there, plus ways to reach us, ways to engage, and some of our original content, so you can see some of the other stuff that we do.